Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Talking here in these two segments about how Obama can be stopped. Not going to be stopped by Congress. And we're going to go gray before our time if we hope and expect Congress to stop this president. He's out of control. He can be stopped. The Founding Fathers left us the mechanism of impeachment to restrain an out-of-control executive officer. So there is a mechanism in the Constitution to restrain President Obama. He can be impeached, convicted, removed from office. It could happen. Those procedures could start tomorrow. And in 6 months from now, he could be out of office. I mean, that could happen, and that would be a perfectly constitutional way to resolve this. But what I'm suggesting is we need to get back to understanding that the federal government is the creation of the states and not the other way around. And that the states gave limited powers of action to the central government. Those limited powers of action are spelled out in Article 1, Section 8. So here's what I'm suggesting is that states have the constitutional right, the constitutional authority, the constitutional responsibility, the constitutional obligation to ignore any directive that comes from the central government, whether it comes from Congress, the president, or the judiciary, that is outside the parameters of Article 1, Section 8, and just ignore it. Just defy it. Just refuse to comply. Remember, Martin Luther King Jr. said, look, if it's not a law that's a just law, it is no law at all. An unjust law is no law at all. And Martin Luther King Jr. said, look, at some point you may have a responsibility simply to defy that law. If you're going to uphold a law, the moral law, the law of God, you may have to disobey an unjust law. And here's my point. People accuse me of advocating law breaking. No, I'm not. What I am advocating is that state governments begin to uphold the law, that they begin to uphold the Constitution by holding Congress, the central government, accountable to the Constitution. They are free and independent states. According to the 9th and 10th Amendments, they retain every power of action that we the people have not delegated to the federal government. If it's not in Article 1, Section 8, the federal government has no moral, ethical, legal, or constitutional right to act. And so what the state governments do, if they get a dictate from the central government, healthcare would be a perfect example. If they get a dictate from the central government saying that you as the state of whatever must do this, such and such, the state governments look at the Constitution, they read through Article 1, Section 8, and they see, look, I see stuff in here about a naturalization. The federal government can do that. About coining money, that's in there. Punishing counterfeiters, that's in Article 1, Section 8. Building post offices, that's in there. Granting patents, that's in there. Punishing pirates, that's in there. Declaring war, that's in there. Providing rules for the military, that's in there. Raising taxes to fundament, all that's in there. I don't see in here anywhere where it says the central government can tell us as a state how to run our health care. So the states just say, look, we're going to ignore it. We're not going to do it. We look at the Second Amendment. Second Amendment says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. If the central government, this is a right now that doesn't even belong to the states, right? It's the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Remember, the 9th and 10th Amendment says if it's not given if it's not given in this Constitution to the central government, it is reserved to the states and to the people. So there's some rights that are so fundamental, the founder said, we're not even going to let the states have a crack at it. So the right to keep and bear arms is not even a state right. It is a fundamental right that belongs to the American people themselves. So if the central government says we're going to restrict your Second Amendment liberties, the state government says, no, you're not. We're not going to comply with that order. It's unconstitutional. It's immoral. It's unjust. And we have no obligation to meekly submit. We created you. You didn't create us. We created you. You are the servant. We are the master. We are the ones that said the right to bear arms is the right of the people and that it shall not be infringed by you or anybody else. So we're not going to comply with any of your gun control laws. Now, that's how the power of Obama can be broken. That's the only way it can be broken as I see it. Now, right now, we have in America 26 state governments that are exclusively under the control of the Republican Party. They have a Republican governor, and both houses of those state legislatures are under the control right now of the Republican Party. So I would say those 26 states, I mean, they can start right now to do something about this. They don't have to wait for anybody or anything. In fact, you know, we've seen this in different areas. I'm looking at a story, and this is what got me thinking about it today. There's a Missouri committee in the state of Missouri, a Senate committee that's approved a bill that will nullify federal gun laws in the state of Missouri. In fact, what this law says is if it's passed, they passed one last year, it was vetoed by the governor. They couldn't override the veto, so they're back again this year. This bill would allow federal agents in the state of Missouri to be prosecuted if they enforced gun control laws that were infringements on the right to keep and bear arms. You had a federal agent from the ATF or the FBI or any other place comes into Missouri and tries to enforce a federal law that infringes on the right of Missourians to keep and bear arms. That federal agent can be locked up in prison for a year and be fined $1,000. Now, that's what I'm talking about. That would be a constitutional way to resolve this. States would be exercising the rights that have been granted to them by we the people in the Constitution. They would not be defying the Constitution. They would be upholding the Constitution. They would not be breaking the law. They would be upholding the law and the Constitution of the United States. And we've got a number of other issues that fit this category. Had a number of states when the federal government said, look, you have to start giving benefits to same-sex partners or people in the National Guard. Mississippi, Texas, other states said, no, we're not. We have a state constitution that prohibits us from doing that. We are going to honor and obey our state constitutions. You got the same thing with what judges saying, overturning state marriage amendments. We need state governments and governors to say, no, we're not going to let you do that. We are not going to issue marriage licenses in our state to same-sex couples. We're not going to do it. Our Constitution forbids us from doing it. You have no authority. We've read all the way through the Constitution. There's nothing in Article 1, Section 8 that gives the central government the right to tell us what to do about marriage policy. It's not in there anywhere. So that's reserved for the states. That's reserved for us. You can't mess with it. You can't tell us what to do. We're not going to comply. We are not going to issue marriage licenses in our state. We don't care what Congress says. We don't care what the Supreme Court says. We don't care what President Obama says. We don't care what Eric Holder says, because they have absolutely no constitutional authority to tell us how to do business when it comes to domestic policy. And so the state government simply says to the county clerks, we are ordering you not to issue licenses to same-sex couples. I don't care who tells you to do it, because they don't have any right to do it. So you got state marriage constitutions. You've got Obamacare. You've got a number of states now working on legislation that would prohibit the implementation of Obamacare in their states. Prayer at school events. You know, you could have a governor say, look, we're going to let students in our state pray before football games because Congress is prohibited, federal government's prohibited from interfering with the free exercise of religion. These judges are trying to do it. The judges are trying to tell us we can't have prayer before football games. They've got no constitutional right to do it. In fact, Congress, the federal government, is specifically prohibited from interfering with the free exercise of religion. So we're going to go right ahead with the free exercise of religion. And if governors would tell their schools district they could do that, they don't have to, but if they can do it, we'll back you up. We're not going to let anybody stop you. If we have to assign state troopers to surround that press box so the student can pray in peace, we'll do it. Nobody's going to interfere with your ability to exercise religious liberty in our state. Constitution does not allow the federal government to do it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the way that I see that the power of the central government can be broken. Let me quickly reopen my call screener software. I just lost the connection to the server. We'll try to finish up with a couple of phone calls if I can get my call screen software to come back up. Okay, Bobby, Hickory, North Carolina. Bobby, welcome. What's on your mind? Robin, Hickory, North Carolina. Welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
Sorry. I'm just so aggravated. I'm so disappointed in the Republicans, and I don't see how we can fix it. I keep praying, and I know that's all in the Lord's hands. I keep praying we'll be able to fix it, but I don't know. I just don't see that there's going to be any fixing it. I just don't. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't know how we're going to fix it, and I just appreciate you and ASA and all the work you do to keep us informed. And I just wanted to let you know I'm praying for America all the time. I know you are too. And if you guys get any answers for us, please give them to us.
All right. Well, thank you, Robin. I appreciate that very much. And I really am trying to offer, because nobody wants armed violence. We do not want blood in the streets. We don't want bloodshed. Nobody wants that. I don't want that. We want this resolved in a way that's constitutional, that's consistent with the Constitution, and is done through the elected representatives of the people. That's how we make change in America in a Republican form of government, is through ballots and not bullets. Well, what I'm suggesting, here's a way to do it. And Robin, I agree with you, and I don't know that this is going to be any different than expecting something better out of D.C., but what I'm saying, I think it's time for us to stop expecting D.C. to be the answer to this problem and start looking at our own state governments. Now, Robin, in North Carolina, you've got Kay Hagan. She's running for re-election as a Democrat. She's behind the two major Republican challengers. They got a primary to go through. But obviously, North Carolina can do something about this. If a state has a conservative governor and a conservative legislature, then they can step up to the plate and just do it. I mean, let's throw down the gauntlet. We are tired of being bossed around by these tyrants in D.C. who forget that we created them, who forget that they exist to serve us and not the other way around, and be interesting to see what would happen. Well, here is something maybe we need in light of the challenges we face. May the God who gives endurance and encouragement give you a spirit of unity among yourselves as you follow Christ Jesus, so that with one heart and one mouth we may glorify the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. See you back here tomorrow.
The views and opinions